Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the stream. Sorry that we're a few minutes late. I was just sorting out our guest for this week, and they are ready. So I'm just going to bring the guest straight on once I've seen chat saying that my sound sounds good and that you can hear us, because I just want to make sure everything is good. How is the sound? Oh, and I also need to go live on Twitch. That was nearly a mistake. I have now pressed start on Twitch. Okay, sound is good. Great. Right, we're just going to jump straight into our guests. So, we have with us this week Imogen from Trans Kids Deserve Better. So, we've done a few episodes recently on Trans Kids Deserve Better. It's a protest group in the UK who did think that trans kids deserve better. Imogen, would you like to introduce yourself and maybe say a little bit about Trans Kids Deserve Better?
Yeah, so I'm Imogen. I use the pronouns. As mentioned, I'm from Trans Kids Deserve Better. We're a direct action group network thing where it's run all by young people under 18, by kids. We're run by kids for kids. We do direct action against decisions and things that we're not happy with. So one of our more recent ones is the Equality and Human Rights Commission encampment and protest. I was part of the one in Glasgow, so I'm Scotland based. Uh, well, what happened there was we climbed a ledge to the Equality and Human Rights Commission offices in Glasgow, me and two others, and we got arrested. That was
Amazing.
fun. Um, but yeah, basically we raise awareness around trans issues, things that affect us, and things we're not happy with.
Yeah, so I'm sure anyone who's subscribed to this channel will know the EHRC is the government's independent human rights watchdog, which is meant to be advocating for minority groups' rights, like trans people, but they're currently led by some single issue anti-trans wackos, basically, and they have been pushing to take more and more of our rights away. And I thought when I saw that you guys had occupied the offices in Glasgow and London, right? It wasn't just Glasgow.
Yes.
Was it just
Yeah,
those
we
two?
had I believe so. There might
Okay.
have been other ones, but what TKDB did was in London, they were both meant to be from Monday to Friday. Ours got a bit short,
Yeah.
obviously. Um, but the London group obviously managed to fulfill theirs, which was very happy. We were very happy about that.
Yeah, it was really cool. So they managed to camp outside for a week, and then the EHRC tried to get the courts to intervene and make it illegal for anyone to protest against them, and then they lost in court. So
Yeah, yeah. So on the final day, they got served an injunction. Where they had to sort of go to court to, but thankfully, the Good Law Project, they helped us fight it, and it got rejected.
yeah, which is really great
So
news.
sucks to suck.
Yeah, exactly. Though it would have been really grim, not just for trans people, but for people in general, if the organization that's taking away your human rights can ban you from protesting against them. Like that is cartoon evil
Yeah,
level nonsense. Um
they're an organization that is meant to protect the right to protest,
yeah,
and is in fact
and just trying
taking
to
it
outlaw
away from
protest.
us.
Crazy. So yeah, you guys obviously have done this recent campaign against the EHRC, but you've actually done quite a lot of campaigns. I know there was one recently where I think it was your group who did a load of blood handprints on the EHRC thing.
So I believe that was on the uh, NHS
Oh
HQ.
yes, it was NHS. You're right.
So that was in response to there's a report created about the uh, suicide rates for transgender people. They're basically withholding that from us at the moment. And we're wanting that. We suspect the reason they're doing that is to is because of what is in the report. Uh, Obviously, with the current state of affairs with trans rights, it's not looking good. And I think they're just withholding that so that way they can say, "Oh, nothing's happening, nothing bad's happening," when in
Yeah,
fact the report will most likely say otherwise.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially in the political situation where Labour wants to kind of just they want to get rid of all this trans stuff, but just kind of push it under the rug and not have a fuss. And Wes Streeting has obviously got ideas that maybe he'll be the leader of the Labour Party one day, and he's the one in charge. And if he's like his flagship policy, the first thing he did when he got into office was take healthcare away from children, resulting in their death rate going up. That's going to
Yeah,
look bad for him.
yeah, making the ban on puberty blockers permanent until a review in 2027.
Yeah, which is disgusting. Um, but also you've done a bunch of other actions. Was it you lot who handed Wes Streeting a paper coffin?
Yes, so
Amazing.
every day for the past over 260 days, I think, since the ban on puberty blockers, we've been leaving coffins outside of his constituency office every day without fail. We do it, and I'm so happy about that. And
Yeah,
during
good.
one of his conferences, I believe it was, we had the opportunity to go there and hand him it in person and tell him our thoughts to his face.
The first time he had ever probably talked to a trans kid, actually. Um,
Probably.
because he spends all his time talking to conversion therapists and saying he sympathizes with them trying to hurt their children. But
And
yeah,
the
I
LGBT Alliance.
yes, exactly. I like that one in particular, that whole like thing of making a show of handing or leaving paper coffins outside his constituency. Someone's got to clean that up. I'm sure that he gets some help to do it, to get rid of them, but it's like really symbolic, and the determination to have done it for like 200 plus straight days is amazing. I hope it's
Yeah,
kept up. I found it
I believe
inspiring.
I believe we were offered a meeting um from West Streeton, but he ended up just stop replying to us after being offered that meeting. So it says a lot.
Yeah, yeah. I'd be surprised if he's ever gonna engage. Like, I mean, I know that you have to be a little bit soulless to be a politician. I mean, no offense to some politicians, but you have to be a little bit. But I think Wes Streeting's like pretty callous and uncaring. But even then, to talk to the people whose like futures you're ruining must still be difficult. So he's going to avoid that as best he can, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Um, was it also Trans Kids Deserve Better who released Locusts at the LGB Alliance conference?
crickets.
Crickets.
We yes, um, we released crickets. They were called the Crit Kids, I believe. And yeah, we went there and released crickets on their conference, which stopped them talking about very transphobic things, and very proud of that one as well.
Yeah, I mean, shutting down the LGB Alliance like hate speech conference is definitely direct action. Like that's the kind of thing that like I just feel like there needs to be more protests in general, like peaceful protests against all these hate group things. I was just doing research for this show, watching some discussion with like all of the who's who of all these like transphobic extremists, like Sex Matters and all that kind of stuff. And they're just all having this discussion in the room, using slurs about trans people, saying we don't deserve human rights and stuff. And like, where are the, we need more protests making it so
Yeah,
it's at least uncomfortable for them to be doing these things, and so they don't feel like um they're just unopposed. So I I feel like as an insect nerd, I feel like I do have to say I'm a little bit worried about the well-being of the crickets. Um but I do think that it definitely made the news.
yeah,
And I think that's one of the things that Trans Kids Deserve Better has done so well at is it like the news really avoids trying to talk about trans people positively or saying like what we want, and you seem to have managed to do quite a few things which have broken through into the news. How do you come up with all your ideas?
So all the ideas and actions and things, they're made by us. They're ideas from kids. Um, we plan it, we uh facilitate it all, we fund it with help from donations from the public. And yeah, it's us who are fighting for our rights. It shouldn't have to be us. We should be free to study for exams that are upcoming, but we are busy fighting for our lives. Um, on the point about the crickets, we bought ones that were specifically going to die soon,
Yeah.
so we didn't want, yeah, just
I
if
yeah,
that's any
I'm
consolation.
not being too judgy. I did I did recognize the like pots. They're the ones you get from like shops for feeding lizards. So um they probably had a better end life than the ones who got eaten by a lizard. But yeah, no, I think it's really great that it's like by kids for kids. You're coming up with your own ideas. Like I think that's really incredible. And what's liberating about it is, I mean, this is like the classic thing that adults always say about kids, but you're not so like restricted by, a lot of trans activists have been doing this for like 30 whatever years, and they know how politics plays and they know how the media plays, and they kind of fall into these patterns, and they not always do things by the book, but they're by their own book. Whereas you guys have kind of just almost like come out of nowhere, because I mean, effectively in the grand scheme of things you have, and then have made more headlines and news stories in the last 6 months even than a lot of trans groups have done in the last 10 years.
Yeah,
Not putting the
when
others
it
down,
when it
but raising you up.
yeah when it comes to making headlines, so obviously with the Glasgow protest, we made um the front cover of two printed publications and multiple online ones. Um, it, we're happy that we have that sort of awareness. That's why we do this, is to spread the awareness. But the fact that three kids have to be arrested for us to make front page news, it's it says a lot about media.
It's like quite a desperate situation, because you wouldn't be climbing buildings and getting arrested if the standard protests where people just turn up in the street with signs were making any difference at all. I mean, like in London, they had that trans rights protest with like 40,000 people or something, and not a single news organization covered it. And when the gender criticals have a protest with like 4 people, the news covers them. So, like, if anyone is watching this and thinking, this is ridiculous, why are these adults encouraging these kids to do these dangerous things, and why are these kids, risking their education by, like, you don't want to do it. I don't want you to do this. The situation is you, the viewer, are involved in a situation where our rights are being taken away and no one is doing anything about it. So we're feeling more and more desperate, and if this kind of stuff's going to happen, isn't it? Like that's the inevitable reality of it. And if it's not going to be you, it'll be someone else who feels desperate. Um, but yeah. So
Yeah.
you got arrested. How was that? Was that like scary? Did they treat you well, or
Well, so it was individual for us. We all have a sort of separate experience, but we all sort of collectively experienced it. Um, the police said that there were no injuries when there were when we were being taken in through the window. I banged my head on the windowsill. All they said was, "Watch your head." Didn't check it or anything. Um, in one of the vans, uh, so one of the activists, uh, who had their hands cuffed behind their back, banged their nose against the sort of plastic glass in there and had a nosebleed. Um, because of their driving. And another activist, the police officers that arrested him, they made their goal to hit their shoulder on every sort of threshold
right?
that they could, and it was just horrible. One of us was kept there for about 8, 9 hours, and two of us were kept in the cell for about 7 hours, um, not knowing what was going on. it was. I think that was probably the scariest part, but not knowing what was happening.
Yeah. I mean, incredibly brave to take that action on knowing that like anything could have happened, really. This is definitely like it's completely disgusting overuse of force when it's children like holding a sign on a building. It's clearly not violent. It's clearly not endangering the public or the police officers or even the staff and stuff at the EHRC. The only people in danger are you for climbing a building, which so they should be being extra careful, not extra violent. And how they can justify, I mean, in your words, did you resist arrest? I mean, maybe you don't want to say that.
We
Um,
we we sought legal advice before. We always do this for all of our actions. We talk to legal
great,
professionals
good.
about what to do. We were told don't resist if you get arrested, just go with it.
Yeah,
And that's what we did. We didn't talk to them because we only told them what we had to, and we were given this legal advice. We didn't resist. We didn't do anything. We went with what they said, and they still treated us that harshly. Within 15 minutes of us being on that ledge, two police vans and a police car, lights and sirens came in. I think altogether there were about 7 police vans coming and going for 3 kids on a ledge.
that is insane. It's so ridiculous. I mean, the fact that they did such a strong response shows that you like were making enough of a scene that they panicked. Because really, they could have sent one police van with like 4 people and told you you're under arrest, and then like taken you carefully, and that could have been in it. And they wouldn't have needed to handcuff you either, right? I mean, maybe that's standard police procedure, but it seems ridiculous. But yeah, anyway, well done for like surviving that ordeal. Are there any other campaigns that you're particularly proud of that you've been involved in?
Um, so this was one of my first big actions with TKDB personally. But I know a lot of other people have been involved a lot longer and know a lot more. I'm just proud of all of them and all of our sort of collective actions together. Being able to come together, just a bunch of kids having fun, trying to raise awareness for our rights.
Trying to live
And
like
it,
kids.
trying to live exactly.
A,
Um,
a classic
I'm just
thing.
proud of everyone.
Good. I mean, I'm proud of you too. And I'm sure the chat is. Like one of the classic things you often hear is let kids be kids when they're talking about LGBT kids. And it's like, well, this is it. If you let kids be kids, then people like you wouldn't be having to protest for their futures. So I have 2 more questions. One is, if people wanted to get involved, how do they get involved? I'm not recommending direct action or anything, but you know, if someone wanted to contact you and whatever.
Yeah. So we've got a website, Trans Kids Deserve Better.
I can bring that
Um,
up.
you
Oh
can
no,
find
it's
us
the wrong one.
online.
Ooh,
Oh,
sorry.
if you're a kid under 18, and you want to join Trans Kids Deserve Better, um, you can sign up. Actually, yeah, on our website, if you go to support, I think it is,
Yeah.
it comes up with a form, and you can check whatever you are,
I love
put in
this
the
actually. So
information.
just for everyone watching, so you can enter your name here and your email and your pronouns, and then you say which one you are, whether you're a trans person who's under 18, trans person who's over 18, a cis ally, or a transphobe may not be contacted.
Yeah. So what happens if you sign up as an adult is you get added to our adult supporter chat where we sort of just contact you if we need help or support for actions. If you're a kid, you join us. And yeah, if you're transphobe, hi.
And then the other thing is, if people want to like financially support your cause, obviously you've got crickets to buy, you know, you've got train fares to get to whatever, you've got paper to buy for folding coffins. Like how can people help you there? Have you got a donation link?
Yeah,
I think so.
yeah.
I
So
have it up here,
we
by the way. Sorry.
yeah. So
Go on.
if you're if you're in the sort of space to support us financially, which we really appreciate, we have I think we've got a few of these, but this is the main one we're using at the moment for
Mm-hmm.
the EHRC stuff. Um,
I'll put
if you
this in
can
the
just donate
description.
there, if you can donate there, we heavily appreciate it. All the funds get used for kids, for our actions, for our food, for our travel, for everything, and also for adult supporters who help us. Everything gets reimbursed by us. So yeah, if you are in the space to sort of help us financially, we really appreciate the help. Um, yeah.
Amazing. So, chat, if you were considering sending me a super chat today, you're totally welcome to. But maybe your money would be better spent donating a few pounds, if you have them spare, to Trans Kids Deserve Better, because they're out here literally fighting for their futures. And I'm sure that everyone watching cares about them having futures. Yeah, so thank you very much for coming on and like talking about Trans Kids Deserve Better. And I feel like we often see your actions and your statements, but it's good to like see some of the human side behind it. Have you got anything else you want to like, any shout outs you want to give, or any other like upcoming protests or anything you want to talk about? Or
Um, just to everyone in Trans Kids Are Better, y'all are amazing. Um, I joined really recently, and yous have been amazing to welcoming me. It's such a great community. Um, and I love them all. Thank you to the adult supporters, and anyone supporting us. Um, yeah, thank you for supporting us.
well, thanks very much for coming on and telling us all about it. And I hope chat appreciated that and that opportunity to hear from you. And good luck in your future endeavors. And I hope you avoid getting arrested in future. But you know, we'll see. Yeah. Bye.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much. Bye.
Bye.
Right. Wicked. I thought that was great. I hope that was informative for everyone. I just feel like we had talked about Trans Kids Deserve Better quite a few times, but then I was just like, we haven't ever like heard from them. I hadn't ever talked to any of them before in DMs or emails or anything. So, um, yeah, it was good to hear from them. But also, yeah, we kind of organized this kind of we kind of organized this last minute, so that's why I was like, okay, we're gonna start with them because we didn't have time for like a sound check or anything, and I didn't want to like sound check and then be like, you can come back in 20 minutes or whatever. I'm sure you understand. Oh, I'm gonna put my headphones in properly. Oh no, just pulled my earring out as well. Sorry, bear with me 1 second, everyone. Then we'll get on to the next bit. How is chat doing? Inspirational. Yeah, I think it's inspirational to see like these kids doing these protests. I mean, I just hope that it kind of makes the adults wake up. Like, why are the trans kids the ones doing the most audacious headline grabbing protests? Like, why do they have to be the ones doing it? So yeah. Anyway, obviously I am not encouraging any kind of illegal activities. But certainly protests are a good thing, especially when you're protesting against EHRC and they try and shut down your legal right to protest and then you beat them in court. That is very good. Right. So the first thing that I kind of wanted to talk about today was the fallout from yesterday. So maybe you were here yesterday when me and Dr. Ruth Pierce went through the EHRC consultation. Maybe you weren't. Maybe you're going to look at it in the future. Maybe you're waiting for me to come up with a shorter video. That's all cool. I do think that you should fill in the consultation, but as people who have already done it or who were here yesterday, fucking hell, it is bleak. So we went through it together yesterday and it took like 4.5 hours. Of course, we were like going through, explaining things, talking to chat, talking to each other. you could definitely get through it in well under half that time, especially if you had some guidance. But it is not quick. There is a lot of space. There is a lot of horrible things in there, a lot of really confusing, badly worded things where they've obviously not talked to a single trans person or considered us at all. And it's just a huge mess. So that on its own is difficult. But the whole way through it is just written in the most like hateful and extreme way. But then, of course, like hidden and coded in like polite sounding like British legal language. So when they say like they had in there saying that they were trying to just have full like countrywide bathroom bill in the UK. But they didn't say we're going to ban like T-word slurs or anything from public, obviously, though that is literally what they're trying to do. Instead, they do all this like trans-identified male rubbish and like more coded slurs and trying to make it sound like it's human rights sounding language whilst just advocate to take away people's rights. So that's really depressing. It's really infuriating and it's really depressing. And I genuinely only managed to go through it because Ruth was there and because chat was there. I set up that live stream in order to help other people go through it, but also selfishly to help me because I knew that I just couldn't do it on my own. And I think I think that's a reasonable reaction. If anything, I think I'm probably more informed and stronger willed than average, having done this for like 10 years plus now or whatever, and having just spent so much time understanding where the gender criticals are coming from. Lots of trans people have been trying to just live their lives and completely ignore this for decades in some cases, or even just a few years. And now all of a sudden they feel like they have to do something. They're going to open this thing and read it, and it's going to be the first time they've ever encountered this horrible, hateful, gender critical like speech and stuff, and it's just going to seem so alien. You're going to read things where you're just going to be like, what are they even trying to say here? Like, this doesn't apply to my life at all, but it's clear that they're trying to say it does. So that's quite distressing. But like I got through it. We did this like 4-hour plus stream, which is very tiring. Like, it's emotionally tiring and it's physically tiring and it's like mentally tiring. And it finished at like 1:00. But of course, I have studio lights here, so as I was saying yesterday, they're like set to like daylight, even though it's night outside in my very excellent green screen background. But then that kind of melts your brain a little bit, and it's good because it keeps you like you're awake and you're alert. And I don't drink caffeine, so I don't have anything like that. I'm literally just drinking water. But your brain does melt a little bit, and that's kind of why I only do one of these streams a week now, and I try and finish it by 10 p.m. so my brain has time to cool down and I can actually sleep afterwards. But yeah, so I was a bit wired at like 1 a.m. and then of course instantly Poppy, my cat, weed on my bed straight away afterwards because she's distressed about the foxes which live in the garden at the moment. So I then had to deal with cat wee on the bed, which is horrible. So I didn't really sleep much last night. But this, I don't think I could have anyway, because it just made me so like feel so many emotions at once. I was so angry. I was like scared, depressed, and like, I don't know. I think that when I was writing it, I was feeling quite defiant. And obviously, I think my general tone or the how I feel generally about lots of this stuff is defiant. I am never going to use men's spaces. I'm never going to use segregated, separate but equal trans spaces. I'm just not going to. But I think going through that made me less optimistic about the future. And I don't want to like fearmonger or make people feel bad about it. I think when you read that, you'll realize. I mean, I already knew that the EHRC was run by really hateful, like anti-trans extreme people, and so I knew it was going to be terrible. And I also separately know all of their arguments and all of the things they say and all the things they're calling for. But when you read it in like this thick, dense document, like line after line of like trans people shouldn't be allowed to do this, they shouldn't be allowed to do this, they should be banned from this, they should be banned from this. It's quite like it's quite overwhelming. And then also on my mind was the fact that I don't think we've covered it yet. In fact, let's cover it now. The person in charge of the EHRC is Baroness Falconer, who's a horrible person. But she is going. They're getting rid of her. So she was put in place by the Conservatives, and Labour have finally said they're going to replace her, and they've just picked another gender critical person. So they've picked who we've got here, Dr. Marianne Stevenson, who so this is Dr. Ruth Pierce, who was on the show yesterday, and she says Marianne Stevenson was very active in feminist politics in the 2010s. I can confirm she is extremely transphobic, although she always kept her nastiest comments behind closed doors. This proposed appointment should be resisted by the strongest possible terms. So this is the person who they're saying is going to take over at the EHRC. Ruth says, I am saying this as someone who was also very active in feminist politics in Coventry around the same time. Stevenson had to keep something of a lid on her transphobic views, as they were not widely welcome within feminist organisations and meetings in Coventry. As others have noted, Stevenson's transphobia did tend to surface when open letters were opposing, for example, the GRA reform. So she signed a letter saying that trans people shouldn't have the rights confirmed by the Gender Recognition Act without going through this bullshit, like, draconian process that we have at the moment, which has now basically been taken away from us anyway by the Supreme Court ruling. Ruth goes on to say, as the government preferred EHRC leadership candidate, she will have to meet with the women's inequalities, so you can pressure them. But also Jess points out that from what they can tell, Dr. Stevenson donated to Alison Bailey's legal case. So I don't know if you remember that. There is a video on this channel from like a couple of years ago. Alison Bailey is one of the LGB Alliance types. She's a gender critical and is, even by gender critical standards, wacky and ridiculous. One time she claimed that trans activists were intimidating her, and then it turned out some kids in her street had just left some like chocolate bar wrapper in her garden, and that like she put two and two together somehow and decided that she was being bullied by trans people. And then afterwards, when the kids come up and apologized and said sorry for leaving rubbish in your garden, she then went on Twitter and was like, well, this is the state of trans people that I instantly thought, like, as if it was our fault rather than whatever's going on in mine. She's also the one who, so this case, she sued Stonewall, claiming there was some big conspiracy to ban her from her job or something, which she lost. And then she claimed she won, and then all the news said she won, and then she appealed it, and then she lost again, and so she said she won again, and now she's appealing again. Anyway, the point is that Alison Bailey isn't some big right-wing freedom of speech kind of person who might lure in the centrists, and she isn't some like neutral whatever. She is a person that only gender critical people have heard of, or people who talk to gender critical people too much, and she's just very clownish and ridiculous. And the fact that she, by what looks here, seems to have donated to Alison Bailey's case, that's a red flag on its own. Like, that's a bigger red flag than signing a letter against the GRA reform, in my opinion. But anyway, this to say that the fact that the EHRC replacement being proposed is possibly just more of the same, and reading through this consultation is just it's so bleak. It is so bad. Like I don't want to give the idea that this is like the end of the road at all. I mean, that was the thing we were talking about yesterday. That's not the case at all. There's so much room for us to protest, push back against this, get MPs to get involved, make it be a debate in the House of Commons, potentially even get new legislation involved, take it to the European Court of Human Rights. There is loads of avenues left, and also, like Ruth was saying yesterday, she was around before these rights even existed, and she was still living a happy life, just obviously more dangerously with less legal protections. But it is pretty grim. And it's just left me feeling so drained, empty and angry with how awful this situation is. How the transphobes have managed to stack these positions of power with these hateful, horrible people who all recommend each other. There's such a like close-knit little group. I was just watching some talk by a bunch of gender criticals at the London School of Economics, and it's like the who's who of gender criticals. There's like the EHRC representatives on the stage answering questions, and the people asking the questions in the crowd, Helen Joyce. Like, it's just unbelievable how like insular and tight-knit their little control group is. And they've just completely corrupted these human rights organizations, and obviously some of the politicians who are making the decisions on who should run the human rights organizations. So, well, I say human rights organizations, independent government watchdog, which in theory should defend trans people's human rights and other people's human rights, but in practice is just a vessel for attacking them. Anyway, I guess I wanted to say all this because I wanted to say, if you are also feeling deflated or angry or empty or scared or like pessimistic, I think you're not alone, and I share that. But I don't, like, I think I'm just going to ride this out. I know that I will feel better in a few days when this initial feeling is gone and when I've had more sleep and etc. But this really is the time when you need to mobilize your friends and family, colleagues, whatever, to send their MPs emails demanding that this isn't the state of affairs, because it is just so horrific. They cannot confirm Marianne Stevenson for the new EHRC lead. They cannot push through the EHRC guidance saying trans people are just second-class citizens with rights from like absolutely every aspect of their life taken away. They cannot push through this guidance which even like tries to legislate what gay people's sexuality is and ban freedom of association and stuff. Yeah, so just push back against it. Fill in this consultation, have a break. Don't like stream the next day on some trans rights show or whatever. And then once you're recovered, send an email, get your friends to send an email, and then just be ready to go to a protest or a pride march or something. I just think that's the state of affairs. It's pretty grim. So, yeah, if the EHRC is an independent watchdog, why does the government get to decide who runs it? Exactly. It's completely ridiculous. So what is the next thing I want to talk about? Let's talk about something a bit more... Do we have anything that's really positive? This isn't a positive week, I'm afraid. Okay, we can talk about something that's kind of related to this, that's kind of positive. So this is from, hang on, I'm just not going to make a mess of this acronym before I say it. God, what the fuck does this even stand for? Transgender Europe. Oh, okay, I guess that's obvious. Anyway, right. So this next thing is from TGEU, Transgender Europe Group, Trans Europe and Central Asia. And they are talking about the news that the Advocate General delivered an opinion on a case which is going on at the moment, which is about violating, well, Hungary is basically trying to genocide LGBT people. They're trying to just get, they're doing they banned Pride, and they're trying to ban talking about LGBT people publicly, basically. And they've got this child protection law. It's the standard right-wing bullshit where they're just trying to, you know, remove LGBT people from society. And anyway, in the process of what's going on, you have this role called the Advocate General, who's like one of the highest up legal people who offers opinions to give to, like, legal opinions to give to judges before they make decisions on cases. And at the moment there's a case going on which is the European Commission versus Hungary, and basically they've given an opinion which is quite good and strong and supports LGBT people. So TGEU here highlights, crucially, the opinion confirms that gender identity is protected under the grounds of sex in Article 21 of the EU Charter of Fundamental Rights. That is quite a big deal. This means that trans and non-binary people, minors and adults, are protected from discrimination across all areas of life. The opinion highlights how Hungary's law censors LGBT content, restricts visibility, and blocks access to affirming info for trans youth, especially for minors. This causes serious harm to well-being, dignity, and safety. It also firmly rejects the parental right to justify censorship. Why this matters: legal clarity empowers trans people to fight back against discrimination in education, healthcare, media, and beyond. Public bodies and courts across the EU must now take this interpretation into account when designing policies. So this is like quite high up important legal stuff in Europe. TGEU welcomes this opinion as it reflects the lived realities of trans people and centres self-determination, not medical status. Whether or not someone has medically transitioned, they're protected under EU law. So that is good. That's a big deal. But importantly, and of course, this stands in welcome contrast to a recent UK Supreme Court ruling that risks excluding trans people from vital legal protections. While we await the final ruling, this opinion sends a clear and hopeful message. Trans rights are not optional, they are fundamental to the EU's legal order. So, in my layman understanding, the case could still go either way, though it looks pretty clear that Hungary is breaking the EU law, basically. How that will all pan out, I don't know. But if the court does rule in that way, then it will, like they say, possibly be in contrast, like legal conflict with the UK Supreme Court ruling, which just gives us a lot more strength if we get a case to go that far. So that is a good thing. And also it does give strength to cases lower down. It's not like we are going to lose every single case until we get one to the Supreme Court, because courts are supposed to take all of these rulings into account too. So this is positive. We do have the whole article here. I don't know if we want to read the whole thing, but there are some important parts. Yesterday's opinion discusses how Hungary's law restricts the visibility of people with gender identities that do not correspond to their sex assigned at birth. Such a restriction, the Advocate General finds, constitutes discrimination on the grounds of sex. So this is important because the gender criticals are always trying to argue that birth sex is all there is. But here they're saying that it isn't that simple, basically. So yeah, that is pretty good. Yeah, it just says they reaffirm that trans people are protected under the EU's Charter's prohibition of sex discrimination. Which, I mean, I guess we already knew, but we did also at one point already know that the Equality Act 2010 in the UK protected trans people, and now we don't. So you never know with this legal stuff, but this is positive. This is a good thing, and hopefully can give us some optimism in a time when it's hard to feel optimistic. So let's talk about, what should we talk about next? How's chat doing? I know what I'm going to do. Last week I didn't do super chats. Let's check out the super chats. Because I feel a bit guilty having missed them last time. Right, where do I go? And I really appreciate them all. Right, so does it have the correct dates on this? Almost certainly not. Okay, I think I found it. And of course, our first one is, thank you very much, from our maths wizard, Sean Isherwood, who says, £5. Thank you very much, Sean. We can write 1072 as the sum of 2 cubes, of 3 cubes, of 4 cubes, all the way up to 922 cubes, not including 0 cubed. Interesting. Why 1072 is a bit of a weird number. Okay. Fuzzy Logic sent £10, which is super kind. Given that Falconer and her ilk clearly had made their mind up even before the court ruled, I wonder it would have been better to be consulted than ignored, or just ignored. Yeah, I mean, obviously the whole gender critical movement has already made up their mind that trans people don't deserve human rights at all. But I think that the more roadblocks there are in the way for them, the more of a hassle it is for them to try and take away our rights, the better. So the fact that they're having to be consulted, I mean, it uses up our time, but it uses up their time. And it just makes it more clear when the majority of the responses to the consultation say how terrible and confusing it is. And when they push on anyway, it's just more evidence and more news and just more things that stand behind us. Mux Alba says, tossing a few quid into the jukebox. Sound sent €2. Thank you very much. Moy Philosopher sent 20 Danish kroner. Thank you very much. Saying, stay safe, everyone. Please do stay safe. Dihydrogen monoxide, very dangerous chemical there, sent £5. Thank you very much. Angry Enby here. I went outside today looking outrageously androgynous and emo, and I feel great for doing so. Trans joy is still possible. Yes, that is amazing news. I love the idea of being outrageously androgynous. I'm glad you did, and I hope that you had a good day, and I hope that you're having a good day today. And shout out to all the people out there who are outrageously androgynous, and also outrageously emo. Like, got to shout out the emos. I remember when I was at school, in the peak times of chavs and emos, one of the teachers at school saying, when you're older and have kids, your kids are going to say, were you a chav or an emo? And I remember thinking about it like, I'm not a chav or an emo. How am I going to explain to everyone that I was a metalhead and I'm just going to look like everyone else who'd be like, no, I wasn't either of those two, when they obviously were. And like all the chavs said that I was an emo anyway. So it's like, I wasn't an emo, I promise. But, you know, shout out to all the people who are and were and are emos. Paula Thomas sent £5. Thank you very much. Saying, sorry, but the issue everyone is forgetting is, where does the judgment leave intersex people? Yeah, who knows? I'm sure it's upended a lot of intersex people's lives too, and just no one seems to talk about it, care. A lot of them will be able to just lie low and hope that it doesn't come to them. Like, hope they don't start issuing cheek swab tests to do park runs or whatever, and then randomly out some people and ruin their lives over it. I think that's one of the things that you need to write in the EHRC consultation. Like, if you're thinking, hey, hang on, no one's talking about this, write it in the consultation, then talk about it. Because, yeah, they haven't talked about intersex people. They don't know. They don't care. They're just complete science deniers. I put that in my consultation responses, which you can see in the video from yesterday. So, yeah, absolutely. Politics Social says sent £2 and says hoping for the best. Thank you very much. Steckbro Games sent £5 saying, I missed most of this. Is the consultation aimed at trans people or can cis people help by completing it too? Oh, so that was from the video yesterday. Yes, cis people, please do fill it in. You absolutely can. If you live in the UK, you can fill it in. It affects you too. You should fill it in. I would really greatly appreciate that. Poppy's here to say hello. So Poppy has, Poppy's an outside cat, but she's not an adventurer. She's not a killer. She's she goes outside just to wee, pretty much, and have a sniff and rub her face on the fence and dig a little hole and then come back in. She's not a very adventurous cat. But because these foxes have moved into our garden, she's now a bit scared of going out. And as I've said, she's been weeing on the bed a little bit, which has been a bit frustrating because she does it in the night. But now she's got a litter tray again, which she hasn't had in years. And she's actually quite enjoying it. But the problem is the only room in the house that the litter tray can reasonably go in is this room. So let's just hope that it doesn't get stinky in here when I'm in the middle of a stream. Yeah, you little rat. Right, let's finish the super chats and then we'll get on to the next thing. We've got another one from Sean here today from, I don't know if it's from today or before. It just puts the wrong dates. It's very confusing. Sean says, the equation x squared plus y squared equals 3z squared has no solution in the integers other than x equals y equals z equals 0. Interested? Wonder whether 3 makes a difference. Anyway, and then Hannah, one of our mods, thank you very much, sent €5 saying, throwing a couple of quid to someone with more spoons than myself. You're doing great, Katie. Thank you very much, Hannah. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you modding and I appreciate all the mods. Like, some of my mods, without really being informed what's going on, turned up yesterday and sat through hours of bullshit. And are now back again today because they're crazy. But I really appreciate that, and I'm sure everyone in chat who isn't a troll appreciates them too. Right, you're going to settle down then, Poppy, and then we'll move on to the next thing. So, man, I am quite low energy. Let's look at this next. So, Dr. Hilary Cass of the Cass Review is getting hit with a lawsuit. That's interesting, isn't it? So this is from a trans person who is a legal person saying, Hilary Cass hit with lawsuit for concealing review papers. That's quite a claim. So they say a legal proceeding has been issued against the Information Commissioner, NHS England, and Hilary Cass for failing to acknowledge that the materials used in the Cass Review are subject to the Freedom of Information Act and the Public Record Act. Yes, we're suing Hilary Cass personally. Interesting. It's now been over a year since the Cass report was published, yet there is still a lack of transparency. We suspect public records were illegally destroyed. That is quite a claim. Despite widespread condemnation from the global medical community for its pseudoscientific foundations, and from the LGBT community for promoting state-sanctioned harm against trans children, the Cass Review continues to enjoy an absurdly untouchable status within British institutions. It is so ridiculous looking at the state of everything to do with trans healthcare in the UK. Like, the transphobes are so entrenched in positions that affect our healthcare that they do not care. They just made this fake study, like this sham report. Everyone instantly criticized it, pointed out it's a load of rubbish. No one seems to care at all. Well, no one in power cares at all. The most our institutions have done so far is the Court of Appeal in the case of O versus P and Arnold, describing the review as controversial. Embarrassing. The CAS review contains outlandish claims, for example, maturation of the adolescent brain reference. Regarding the myth of the 25-year-old brain being cited in the final report, lawyers linked to hate groups attempted to use this in a recent Court of Appeal case to prevent a young person from accessing hormone replacement therapy. DSD reference regarding CAS's suggestion of a parallel between gender-affirming care and the troubling history of non-consensual treatments imposed on intersex people. Pornography reference. Yeah, this is some Redux level conspiracy nonsense. Regarding CAS's suggestion of a link between trans men and exposure to pornography. The public has a right to know why Hillary Cass included those references, especially since her recommendations were expected to become official policy and ultimately did. We therefore submitted a Freedom of Information Act and plan to submit additional ones. The NHS offered several excuses, including the deeply troubling claim that our requests were vexatious. I don't know. They used this justification to avoid responding altogether. Since then, they have gone completely silent. Last month, the Information Commissioner confirmed that the NHS actions were unlawful. He found that our requests were not vexatious and ordered the NHS to stop ignoring Freedom of Information requests. Like, what is going on? Why are we in a situation where, like, how did we get into a place where the NHS has completely given up on their duty to help trans kids, and when people are asking where's this information come from, they're flat out refusing to provide it? Like, how is anyone supposed to read that and not think it's like some kind of conspiracy going on? Like, just, yeah, it's just grim. I really strongly try and avoid the idea of conspiracies, but I'd be shocked if there wasn't a gender critical person at the top here making the decisions. I mean, also like the thing we were just talking about with Trans Kids Deserve Better, how we know they have a report on the trans suicide rate for under 18s, and they're just refusing to release it. Like, why? When you've just banned healthcare for children and now you're not even releasing a report on the impact of it? When we know you have one, it's not even like you don't want to do one or you can't do one. Poppy's drinking my drink. Anyway, the Information Commissioner seems naive in expecting the NHS to comply with the law. They did not. Instead, they chose to deny holding the CAS review's papers. Who holds the information on whose behalf is a question of both law and fact. A judge in the first tier tribunal will decide whether they hold the information. Before that, we need to establish where the information is located. Therefore, as part of the legal action, we have requested the NHS England and Hillary Cass to confirm the whereabouts of the information within 7 days. If they are unable to do so, we will ask the tribunal to intervene and compel them to produce the CAS review's papers. Whether or not this action is successful, the way that Hillary Cass and the NHS have conducted themselves suggests they do have something to hide. Exactly. How can you not read this in that way? The question before us is not only what is being concealed, but also how far they went. Did they simply keep the papers and pretend they did not exist, or did they actually destroy them? Their conduct undermines public confidence in our healthcare system, and there is no going back. So there you go. This is pretty crazy. I mean, the whole situation is just completely crazy. It's so transparently bullshit, the CAS review. If you look up any, if you just look at what any experts on this are saying at all, it's all of the people who absolutely are not experts who also just happen to oppose trans rights in general and want to ban trans people from public in support of the CAS review and the current government, Wes Streeting. And then all of the experts, people who know about trans healthcare, the peer reviews, like it's been peer reviewed now, multiple other studies done by other actual expert groups in other countries, all came to like strong disagreement with the CAS review. And now they're refusing to provide the evidence for some of their claims. They're refusing to release reports on the impact of what they've done. Like, come on. It's pretty grim. Like, what is going on? So, yeah, I mean, if you've got energy, there are some people who are letter writing machines. And if you're not sick of writing to your MP, like if you're going to write one thing to your MP and you're a trans person, write about something that affects you personally directly. and that's probably going to be the EHRC consultation if you're watching this video. Obviously, if you're a trans kid or you're a parent of a trans kid, write about that. But if you've got letter writing energy, write to your MP asking them to bring up the fact that the CAS review is a total sham in Parliament. Inform them about it, make them know that they're hiding the report, demand they release the report on trans suicides. But yeah, this, I mean, it's grim how like overtly deceptive it's getting, and how much the legal pressure we're having to apply on them. So I hope this case goes somewhere. I hope they are forced to reveal that they don't have any evidence for this, because they obviously don't. So we'll see. So what other things have we got here? Man, we do have a really grim one. I just don't know if they have the energy to cover it, to be honest. Got here. Okay. Okay, let's cover this thing next. So, yeah, crossing fingers. Oh, we got another super chat. That was very kind. I've got a few. We've got one from Andrea Maynard saying, we all need to be writing letters every week to MPs and to the PM so they can't ignore them. Yeah, I should write to the Prime Minister again, like they do emails. Yeah, and I should write a letter. Thank you very much for £10. It's very kind. And you are right. We do need to be writing letters. It is exhausting. Just keep doing it. It's exhausting them too, to keep getting them. £5 from Paula Thomas. Very kind, thank you. You are all aware that the person who designed the instruction set on the CPU in every smartphone on the planet was a trans woman. Yep. I am aware of that. Sophie Wilson. There's a few trans women electronic engineers who are instrumental in computers. And she is one of them. And Lynn Conway's another one. There's a bunch. Maybe that'll be me in the future, because I am also one of those nerds who designs computers and stuff. It's quite possible that through me talking and going into this microphone and going into the internet, at some point it goes through a chip that I worked on before it gets to your eyes. Depending where you are in the world, it's not impossible. So where would the transphobes propaganda machine be without the trans people building the cables, huh? And then 20 Canadian dollars. Thank you very much. That's very kind, from Amanda E saying, for the fight. Oh yeah, I've got an MMA fight coming up in a minute, guys. No, I know what you mean. For the fight of trans rights in general. By the way, sorry if I sound a little bit low energy today, guys. I hope you understand. Someone saying, fix my computer, Katie. Like, so as you might have noticed if you've ever watched the stream before, I'm good at designing computers and maths. I am not good at tech. They're different things, okay? I'm not an IT person. I'm an engineer. I'm not IT. So when I load up my computer and for some reason it has reset some driver somewhere to change the frequency of my voice, or OBS refuses to stream properly or something, I don't know why. I can't fix your computer. What I could do is I could tell you, yep, that's broke. And I could design a processor from scratch. So, not very useful. Right. So, let's move on to the next thing. So I saw this earlier in the week from Joe Malm from the Good Law Project, and he's uploaded this photo. And he says it's from Membury Services. Membury Services is on the M4. So this is a major road in the UK that goes from east to west. It basically goes from the edge of Wales to London. So this is one of our most important roads. And on there we have service stations. I don't know what Americans call them, truck stops or something. I don't know. It's where you can pull in and use the toilet and buy a McDonald's and spend too much money on a like fluffy toy or whatever. Anyway, some of them have Pokemon card vending machines actually. But we have this photo here, which has an arrow pointing one way with a man, and then a little man taking a shower, and someone in a wheelchair, and then the trans symbol, and then a couple changing a baby. And then on the right we have a little woman taking a shower, and then a woman changing a nappy. So Joe's responded, oops, so much clarity. Visitors will visit the UK, look at these signs and think, these guys have completely lost the plot, and they'd be right. So I think a lot of people's, including my initial reaction was, God, they've put up this new sign saying that trans people have to go to the men's toilets, like all trans people. And I think it was very easy to react in that way. And I felt like quite stressed by it. Like obviously in the fallout of the Supreme Court ruling and stuff, and the EHRC saying that trans people should be banned from public and things, it was depressing to see this. However, someone snapped me back into out of panic mode. So Cyber Spice on Blue Sky, thank you very much. They say, I am trans, I hate the Supreme Court ruling and what the EHRC is saying, but right now people are getting their knickers in a twist. That's a British phrase for getting panicked over this photo. It doesn't say what you think it does. There's a long corridor to the right and it says turn left if you want to use these facilities. Here's the photo and mine. So we've got the original, and then they have men's toilets and women's toilets like they've always had. And then you can go down the corridor and there is a accessible toilet. And I mean, you can't see the trans symbol there. But I think what this has made me realize is some institutions are trying to be inclusive or positive. But what they want to do is they want to have men's and they want to have the women's, and then they want to have another third option if you want it. Like that was probably in the intention here. This sign, as far as I'm aware, my understanding is, has been up since before the Supreme Court ruling. And they have ignorantly, stupidly in my opinion, used the trans flag symbol, or the symbol for trans people, to like label their toilets. What it should say, like ideally this would say, like there'd be a men's toilets, like in this photo, men's this way, women's this way, and then they could have another option that says like all gender toilets or whatever, however they want to describe it. And then they should all be optional. But when they have, particularly when it's pointing in the same direction as the men's toilets, just the trans symbol, it makes it seem like all trans people are men this way, women this way. So I think this is kind of crappily done. I do think that this maybe when they put it up, they thought, oh, this is clear because there's a special facility that anyone can use. But why would you label it with the trans symbol when it could just, I mean, maybe some cis people want to use a facility that's not gender segregated too. Especially if they're like a couple wanting to change a baby, or they have like young kids with them and, you know, something like that. And they need to go into a facility together to like wash their kids down because they've just fallen in mud or something. So I don't think using the trans symbol is right, but I think in the context of the Supreme Court ruling, suddenly it looks a lot worse than it is. But I don't know. It's hard to know. But I did send Memory Services an inquiry. I'll just get it up here. So I sent them something. I was quite stressed when I sent the first thing. I'll just say what I sent. I said, I'm a British journalist who covers LGBT issues. I've seen a photo on social media, allegedly of memory services, with a sign that suggests trans people are to use certain facilities. Can you confirm that this sign is real? Are all trans people required to use the men's facilities or the disabled facilities? Does this also apply to intersex people? How will you be policing this? Does this apply to staff? If people refuse to use the toilets, will they face prosecution? If employees refuse to use them, will it affect their employment? Do you still have male cleaners in the women's facilities? I've been to memory services quite a few times. Whenever I drive to London, it's one of the options. And I know that all of these Welcome Break, so Welcome Break's the company that owns them, all of these Welcome Break services have male and female cleaners for all the toilets, and they have a sign on all the doors saying that. Anyway, they didn't respond for ages, and I prompted them again saying, I'm going to talk about this evening. Would you like to comment? And I got an official reply. So this is their official statement. They say, we are committed to ensuring all Welcome Break locations are safe, respectful, and inclusive spaces for all our customers and colleagues. So it's a good start. The sign in question is directing customers, and I just hear this first before jumping to any conclusions, but we'll see. The sign in question is directing customers to a separate toilet facility which is available to anyone who may prefer to use it when visiting our memory services. We're currently in the process of a wider review of signage on our sites whilst awaiting further guidance. So they're doing we're waiting for the EHRC guidance dance. When they say this sign is directing customers to a separate toilet facility which is available to anyone who may prefer to use it, I think, again, you could maybe read that negatively or positively. Positively. I think I'm choosing to read that positively, and what they're trying to say is we have a separate toilet, which isn't like a communal hand washing area, and anyone can use it. And that was the intention. And the fact that they're reviewing this sign is probably good. I don't think they should have the trans symbol. They could write all, or they could maybe just make it more clear, or just write it, or whatever. But you could read that as, oh yeah, we have a separate toilet for anyone. But they didn't specifically say that trans people can use the correct facilities. So I don't know. I can imagine they're trying to avoid a media scandal. I did go in a bit hot, demanding them to answer a load of questions. So, yeah, I think this is maybe a bit overblown, and I also think that I contributed to that. So if you saw that post because of me and panicked that memory services had changed their sign to segregating trans people, I guess I'm sorry for helping that bad idea spread. But I do think it's possible that the EHRC guidance will come out saying all trans people should be banned, and then Welcome Break will take the position trans people should be banned. I don't think they'll police it. Who knows what's going to happen. But I actually at the moment don't think that this is anything other than someone trying a little bit, but not really trying that hard to just include everyone, and just making a bit of a mess of it. I nearly went to these services. It's like an hour drive from my house. So I was like, should I just go and see the segregation sign? But I decided to see my friends instead, which I think was a better thing. We played a card game called Dominion, which was quite fun. But I'm glad that someone did go and look. So shout out to Cyberspice. And I guess one of the things that I think is important that we do is not amplify. Like, this is one of the takeaway I want from this is we really have to be careful at not amplifying panic in the trans community, because there is a lot to panic about. There's a lot of grim stuff going on, and we don't need to create extra things. And it just shows that I can fall for that too. I can be responsible for that too. And so can you. And what's important is, like, if you're really, really angry at me for this, then just let me know in the comments. That's totally fine. I mean, all I can do is say I'm human and I panic too. But what is important is when you find out about this stuff that it's not as bad as it looks, or it's just completely fake, or whatever, important to then do something about it and call it out. So I'm going to try and present this video in a non-clickbait way, but where people still try and still click on it, because like the clickbait way to get people to click on this video will be memory bans trans people ? And then in the video you're like, oh, actually no, they didn't. But I'm not. I think it's important to be responsible in discussing these things. And yeah, you just need to check things twice. You don't want to be responsible for outrage bait. Like gender critical people, I actually did a cartoon about this a while ago. Let me see if I can find it. Gender critical people often take photos deceptively to cause outrage, to cause a news cycle, and will like specifically edit them to like generate outrage, and then people believe them or think they're true or whatever. And we need to be careful that we're not doing that too. Like obviously if you're someone who's dishonestly doing that, then like get fucked. But it's very easy to fall for these things. And like the gender critical people don't care about what's true or not, and that has to be one of the things that makes us different from them. That we do care and we correct ourselves when we're wrong. So let me just find this. Oh, I'm not going to be able to find it now, am I? What would I have put it down as? Man, it's so hard to search Twitter now. It's bullshit. Maybe I posted this one to Blue Sky. We'll take the shot this cartoon is on Blue Sky. And if it's not, then fuck it. Did I post it here? Gonna have to remember to edit this bit out because it's... Sorry if it's boring. I'm sure I wrote the phrase GC Twitter. Maybe someone in chat can find it. It's a cartoon where there's like a phone editing a picture, and it's of some toilets, and they've edited out the women's one. Maybe I wrote gender critical. It's pink. It's pink. Oh, found it. Amazing. I did write Twitter. This Twitter search is so shit now. So I did this cartoon a while ago, which I felt like there was something going on where the gender criticals were like, oh my god, they've just made the women's toilets into the unisex toilets. They're just shoving all the trans people in with the women, and women's spaces being taken away. And then the venue replied to them like, the women's toilets are behind you. And they'd like taken this dishonest photo where you could see like men's and the unisex ones, and then just out of shot were the women's ones, and they'd clearly been lying about it. So I think this like summed up the situation. Hopefully you can see they're like editing the picture. But we don't want to be responsible for this. We don't want to be responsible like, you don't want to be the person who's editing the photo because you're a dishonest liar, and we're not going to use misinformation because like we lose when there's misinformation. We have to just only say things that are true. That's like the difference between LGBT people and anti-LGBT people is we say things that are true and they don't. And that, like the truth and the facts is all we have, because we don't have the money, we don't have the power, we don't have the propaganda machine. So it's important we stick to truth. Also, it's immoral to lie, but also you don't want to be the person who believes this. You don't want to be the person who sees this picture and instantly gets angry and like does something about it, and then causes a load of information to spread even if you weren't the originator. But yeah, so I think welcome break services are safe to use for trans people at the moment, or as safe as they were yesterday, last week, last year. But whether that will be true in the future, we'll find out. How exciting. Just existing and having a we is political now. Yeah, I know. It's just disgraceful. It's disgusting. So I'm just deciding when I want to... Okay, we'll do this other one because it's a bit more positive. Then maybe we'll get onto the most horrible one last. It's not really the way to do it, is it? But it's probably the way we're going to do it. Sorry, everyone. What's this one? I'm not doing that one. Can't be asked. Okay, so... I found out recently that there was a court case going on. Actually, this isn't the way to introduce this. I'm going to start again. Sorry, everyone. Very slow. We're going back. Right, so... You might remember that I did a talk at Edinburgh University a couple of years ago, and some gender critical people interrupted it and shouted a load of rubbish. But the talk was quite positive, and I think it went quite well. And importantly, it was talking about my experiences of being a target of the gender critical movement and all the horrible things they'd done to me, and how I think that we can like combat that so other people don't have to experience it. Importantly, or as I guess as a side note, really, the gender criticals who interrupted my talk got up and called me a liar, amongst other things, when I said that gender critical people were trying to ban trans people from public spaces, take away healthcare, and change the Equality Act. That was one specific point. I said they were trying to change the Equality Act to make it so trans people were banned from public spaces, and they directly called me a liar. And of course, now today they are celebrating that they have changed the Equality Act via the Supreme Court. So they were definitely lying, and I think they knew they were lying when they said that. Anyway, I did that talk, and that talk was organised at least partially in response to the fact that the gender criticals at this university, Edinburgh University, had organised a film screening on the university property of this anti-trans hate film called, of course, Adult Human Female. Allegedly, the film is like really terrible, but it wasn't about like none of the people who were going to go and watch that film were going to like learn anything. It was, you know, it's just one of their little conspiracy films. It was about a show of power that they could show this hate film on university property, and there was a load of protests. And the first 1 or 2 times that the protests were there, they managed to like stop the film being shown. And I actually interviewed some of the protesters a few years ago on this channel about them shutting down the screening of this ridiculous hate film. So that was good. I think they did eventually show the film. I'm not sure. But it turns out, and I didn't know anything about this, there was a court case. The gender criticals who tried to show the film sued the university union, saying that the protests against their hate film were like illegal. And they were, you know, classic gender criticals. They were trying to shut down protest because that is like what they exist to do at the moment. They're part of the authoritarian wing of the state, so they're all about shutting down protests. And the reason I've like linked this in with me is because they lost. That's good news. They lost the claim that they were making and get fucked, basically. But the reason that I feel this is related to me is because they felt this was related to me. In the judgment, they talk about me quite a lot. And they tried to say that the UCU, the University and College Union, supporting a protest against the hate film was contradictory because they didn't support a protest against me. And equally, the fact that my talk was like encouraged by the university and allowed to go ahead, but theirs wasn't, was like discrimination against them, which is fucking insane on the face of it, because they were literally holding this like hate rally, and I was a victim of their hatred, talking about the experiences I'd had being targeted by them, and they protested and interrupted my talk. So it's not even like it went ahead without interruption. And like the big difference here is my talk had way more people at it than their film screening did, and the protest against their film screening had way more people at it than their protest did against me. They had 3 people, one of whom was a lecturer at the university. So yeah, it was all kind of ridiculous. So I just kind of wanted to talk about, like, it's really weird. I feel like, I mean, they're probably not legally obligated to involve me, but they were like quite heavily using me in their arguments, like talking about me. I mean, maybe we can look at the judgment because it was interesting. But let's just first look at what the UCU say. So they are quite in support of trans people, which is good. This is one of the bigger unions in the country. Employment Tribunal rejects claims University and College Union discriminated against members on grounds of gender-critical beliefs. Yeah, fuck off. The University and College Union successfully defended claims against it in an unemployment tribunal. In an employment tribunal from 2 UCU members. So these are members of a trans-supporting union who are themselves anti-trans, who are complaining the union is pro-trans. Get another fucking union, mate. Go and start a GC Dickheads union of like the 17 people who hate trans people, who are all probably politicians and work for the EHRC, and hold your own hate film screenings in your own property. Anyway, claim they were discriminated because of their gender critical beliefs. The case relates to their film screening. The claimants believed action discriminated and harassed them. It's just unbelievable. They concluded that they were not treated detrimentally. So, get fucked. In December 22, the UCU's Edinburgh branch committee had written to the university principal asking the university not to host or facilitate the film screening because it saw a film as an attack on trans people's identities and not in line with the university's dignity and respect policy. The UCU Edinburgh branch encouraged members and students to attend alternative events being held by the Staff Pride Network and Students Association. The claimants, who are UCU members, then wrote to the union's general secretary asking her to confirm they were entitled to their gender-critical beliefs. Entitled to our beliefs. Like, you can believe whatever ridiculous clown, hate-filled bullshit you like, and you're entitled to it in the same way that you're, like, entitled to have a brain and think. Or in the case of gender criticals, not think. But that doesn't mean you can go around holding hate films and intimidating people and campaigning to remove their human rights without pushback, without people protesting against you. Ridiculous supremacist losers. So, of course, that she confirmed that gender critical beliefs are recognized to be legitimate philosophical beliefs. This is like a legally state-enforced mantra that you have to repeat now because of the gender criticals. I don't feel the need to pressure any union into saying that my beliefs are legitimately held philosophical beliefs because we know that. They know that. The union knows that. Of course, trans people should be able to have human rights. That's like obvious. The gender criticals know that the only way that they can hold their little hate rallies is because they managed to lie in court and say that gender critical is just simply and solely the belief that sex is binary and immutable, and then they can hold these, host these films saying all kinds of horrible things about trans people and calling to take away our rights. And the law has somehow, and media has somehow fallen into this position now where they can bully people into saying this, because if you don't say this like mantra, then you're risking getting a lawsuit from them. But this person got a lawsuit anyway. She noted that the UCU members hold many opposing views, and it's not for the UCU to stand in the way of members and branches protesting certain expressions of protected beliefs, like the belief that gender critical should fuck off. The claimants tried to make the case that various social media posts expressing solidarity with trans people or opposition to the film were harassment. They actually genuinely tried to argue in court that posting in support of trans people is making them feel harassed. Like, these people are just vile. They know that they are trying to game the law here. They know they're not being harassed. It's absolutely pathetic, and it's disgraceful that that's even a thing that they think they can get away with. And I'm very glad the judge shot this down. But of course, they have unlimited money. Maybe they'll appeal this, and if it goes to the Supreme Court, who knows? Yeah, blah, 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 blah. It's welcome to have this positive decision at the start of Pride Month, and at a time when trans and non-binary people feel under attack. This decision demonstrates that trade unions and others can stand up for trans rights and trans inclusivity, and our union is committed to continuing to promote a more equal and safe world for all people, regardless of their gender identity. That's a good claim. To the two dickheads who are part of this union who hate trans people, just go somewhere else. Fuck off. The UCU, this is unrelated to this, but they have done some quite strongly worded pro-trans stuff. So they've got this statement here on the Supreme Court ruling, and they say, we unequivocally reject this ruling's reduction of womanhood to biology. As Olympic testing and related media forays have indicated, the category of biological sex is potentially exclusionary for some women, including those assigned female at birth. This includes chromosomes, hormone levels, and secondary sexual characteristics. In addition, the biological policing of women's bodies can lead to the harassment of gender non-conforming women and black women, as was demonstrated in the recent Olympic Games. J.K. Rowling. Women are not physically inferior versions of men. Our function is not one of broodmares. We repudiate the equation of women with reproductive function as profoundly misogynistic. This is a strong statement. This is really good. So the UCU, at least at the moment, are very good. And they say quite a lot of very pro-trans stuff here. The ruling's definition of lesbian is based solely on sexual attraction, and biological sex is homophobic, transphobic, and aphobic. We completely reject any policing of LGBT identities. So, very strongly worded statement for them. There was a Guardian article on it. It's the UK Guardian. I know last week I said maybe they're getting better. This one isn't. This article is trash. It's whining about the gender criticals and giving them all their say, and then finally at the bottom you get one sentence from the union. So yeah, bullshit article. But let's look at the judgment bits. This is a bit self-indulgent, I've got to say, because I'm just going to be looking for a judgment that talked about me, but it's interesting to see. I'm just literally just a random trans person. So let me see if I can find it here. I can. Let's just do a download of that. Let's just crack this open. Yep, that's legit. So we have here the full judgment. It is, of course, a trillion pages long. So we're not 52. We're not going through this. We are going to search for my name. They spelled my name wrong. I only just realised that. Great. The official ruling spells my name wrong. Does it spell it wrong in every single place? No. 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 No, that's why I didn't notice it before. They spelled it wrong once and correctly the other 6 times. They've got a little bit of from my talk here about dog whistles and sex matters, which I think is good to have in an official legal ruling. So I was saying about how gender criticals use dog whistle politics, and it's where you say what you don't say what you think, and you come up with something different, basically, to conceal it. We all know what dog whistles are. I was explaining it to a group of people there, so that was that's good to see. This made me laugh. On the 17th of January 2023, the branch retweeted a SPN tweet advertising an event to take place on the 27th of January, at which YouTube star Katie Montgomery was to speak on combating online hate and the gender critical movement. It was very explicit in saying it would be her own personal account of online hate and would discuss ways of coping with its impact. Which I did. That was the whole thing. That was what it was about. By the way, I think I've told this story on the channel before, but of the 3 people who interrupted my talk, we had a house party afterwards, got really drunk, then me and some people went clubbing, and we bumped into 2 of them, who I think were a couple, at the gay bar that we went to. And one of them came up and said that they thought that the hate I had experienced was really bad, and said they felt bad about it. So, I really believe that there are some gender critical people, or there used to be more a high percentage, but less now, who at least are aware that what they're doing is horrible, but they, for some reason, have bought into this culty worldview or something. But they all know deep down that they're on the aggressor side, the hate side, the side that's doing the oppressing, and maybe they justify it by thinking trans people are disgusting, or saying that we have too many rights already, or this usual right-wing bullshit. But they do know. But yeah, it was funny to see me officially branded a YouTube star in the in this ruling. It's funny that they got a transcript of my talk. I didn't provide a transcript. I just talked. So someone had to go through and transcribe my entire talk. They really went in on dog whistles. So, she considered... interestingly, they do she, her me the whole way through as well. So that's good. So this was argued by... Naomi Cunningham, who's one of the... She's the top gender critical legal people. So it's good that she was... That she is horrific as a person. I feel like it's very dangerous to give your opinion on a gender critical person, especially when they're a lawyer, because, they don't... Gender criticals do not like people criticizing them. They sue people all the time. But... I personally, in my personal opinion, think that the views of Naomi Cunningham are among the worst I've encountered. Very not what I agree with. In the most the strongest way I could possibly communicate that to you. I think they are very, very grim. So it was good that she had to refer to me as a person the whole way through this, which I'm sure she, in my opinion, possibly wouldn't have enjoyed. She considered the title of the film to be a dog whistle, in her view, meaning trans women don't have rights. That trans women shouldn't have rights. That's the point. Not that we don't have rights, because we did have rights up until the Supreme Court ruling. The claimants and those with gender critical views saying that is stating the dictionary definition. Yeah, but you're not actually, so get fucked, you liars. What else did we have here? They really didn't like the dog whistles. Yeah, exactly. Gender critical people know how to use dog whistles. It's like a core part of being a gender critical person. Conceal your power level. In cross-examination, Mr. Butters, good name, was asked what would have happened if someone with gender critical views had come to him and said they felt threatened by Katie Montgomery's talk. Well, what he should have done is laugh them out the room, because that is fucking insane. The reason that trans people feel threatened by a film called Adult Human Female, which is just campaigning to remove trans people's rights, is because we know these people who hate us enough to want to remove our rights actually have political power and as evidenced by what has unfolded since this talk happened, have been able to remove some of our human rights. And that is terrifying. And of course it's threatening. And of course we feel threatened by gender critical people when they send us constant abuse, threats, dox us, assault us in some cases, and they try and take away our rights. Of course they feel threatened. If a gender critical person feels threatened by me, like, in what way? That I am there? That I am existing? That I'm talking about all the hate that I've received from them? Like, just fucking pathetic. Like, absolutely pathetic. They know they are lying if they say they feel threatened by this. It's like when a gender critical person sees a trans person in the toilet and they go up and confront them and get in their face and say they shouldn't be there or whatever. They're not feeling threatened by the trans person. They're not, like, afraid for their safety. They are having a power trip. They know that they have the power to ruin this trans person's day or potentially life, and they're going to do it because it makes them feel powerful. And it's the same with this. The reason they were hosting that film wasn't because any of them wanted to see it. They could see it free on the internet. They wanted the power trip of being able to host it on the university grounds. And now when they're saying they're feeling threatened by my talk, it's because they're having a power trip. They know that there are rules in place which are clumsy and allow them to pretend to feel threatened by someone pushing back against the horrible things they've done to me personally and to trans people in general. He stated that the content of the talk was not known until after it happened. If, however, they had information as they had for the film, they would have acted accordingly. What does that mean? When asked now how he would have reacted if he had a complete script of her talk, he might have taken the same stance in writing to the principal, relying on the dignity and respect policy. That would have been insane. Like, if he's telling the truth there, that is insane. And if he's watching this video, I'd like to talk to him about it. And I would like him to explain to me how that is remotely plausible. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I was listing off the ways in which gender critical people are trying to ruin our lives and the horrible things they've done to me personally in the past. And you want to shut down my talk? Get fucked. I'm glad that these people... I'm glad that the tribunal does not accept that Katie Montgomery's talk is an appropriate comparator under the Equality Act. It was a talk and not a film, which could be viewed before screening. It was not advertised by Evan Bright with the same questions in the promotional literature, which some could find to be provocative and contrary to trans rights. Exactly. Get fucked. So, that was an interesting development, and yeah, we'll see. See how, I mean, there's got to be a world record for the number of court cases that people have been that have affected people or talked about them without them having a say in any of them. And, like, trans people have got to be up there. I'm sure there are people who have way more. I mean, Donald Trump doesn't seem to attend any of his court cases and loads of them about him. But, you know, trans people are definitely above average. And now I have one more than all of you guys. So, yeah, let's see. Let's hope this stays positive. So, how's chat doing? I can see that. There's some combos going on. Power trip is exactly right. Yeah. Most anti-trans people have never met a trans person. Yeah, totally agree. I can add YouTube star in my CV. I won't be. If I ever apply for another job, I will not be bringing up that I had done YouTube in that job. If it's an engineering job, if it's a YouTube job, which I think would probably be terrible and I really don't want to do, then I guess it makes sense. Yeah, legally defined by the appeals court or whatever to be a YouTube star. Butters. It's a good surname. I mean, no, you shouldn't dunk on people for the surname, but Butters is it's a funny one. I don't want my job to be professional YouTube. Like, one of the things that I enjoy about YouTube is, like, as an aside, like, I think it's important, and, like, for example, yesterday, if we got anyone else to fill in that consultation, then that is why I do this show. You guys watching now, if you're learning things or you're feeling empowered or you're feeling just more sane than you would have been otherwise, that's why I'm doing it. But it's also nice to see number go up. Like, I'm closing in on 30,000 followers. That's pretty cool. Subscribers, sorry. Just overtook Graham Linehan. That's pretty cool. And one of the things you can see, you get this little app where you can see like how your videos comparing to the last one, all this kind of stuff. And every time that one of my videos, like the one that's currently most recently released, is beating the average, it's cool to see. But obviously they can't all beat the average, so some don't beat the average. And when they don't, I'm like, oh well, it doesn't matter. But if it was my job and then I released a video that I put some time and effort into and then it did really badly, sounds very stressful and depressing to me. Yeah. I don't want my job to be involved in my emotional state as much as possible. So I know that's quite a privileged position to be in, where I can do that, because lots of people's job is their emotional state, but don't want that. I'd rather not do YouTube, but we're here and now, so we might as well enjoy it. Graham's still on the start line in his car bed. True. So this last thing. We're gonna do it. We'll get through it. It made me furious. So we'll see. So you might have seen this article in The Guardian UK saying EHRC Commissioner calls for period of correction on trans rights after legal ruling. Akura Reindorf said law never permitted self-ID, but trans campaigners call remarks profoundly unhelpful. And importantly, transgender people must acknowledge a period of correction of rights, whatever the fuck that means, after Supreme Court decision on gender, because they have been lied to over many years about what their rights actually were, one of the commissioners drawing up the official guidance has said. Akura Reindorf is one of the hardline gender criticals working there, who works constantly with anti-trans hate groups, by the way. But you might have seen this article worded completely differently, with a completely different headline and completely different everything. And that's because they originally posted, EHRC Commissioner calls for trans people to accept reduced rights after years of lies. Transgender people must accept a reduction in their rights after the Supreme Court decision on gender because they have been lied to over many years about what their rights actually are, one of the commissions drawing up their guidance has said. And there's a few other changes in this article. Actually, I think we have them highlighted. Do we have them highlighted? Oh, I thought I had them highlighted. There's a few other changes. But the big change is says people to accept reduced rights versus acknowledge a period of correction of rights because they've been lied to. As if there's a difference between being forced to acknowledge a period of correction as them just saying reduced rights. But the reason is, of course, like all gender critical people, Akura Reindorf does not like it when people criticize her or talk about what she's calling for trans people. And there's obviously been, in my opinion, probably been legal threats behind the scenes. I did confront one of the journalists. So this guy, Peter Walker, who is a Guardian senior political correspondent, he posted about this. And he originally posted the original headline, and then he deleted it, and so did the official Guardian Blue Sky, and they reposted a new one with this now like cryptic 1984 style. Actually, trans people never had human rights, and now they've got to adjust to go. So apparently, we have gone from having human rights to never having had human rights. We haven't gone from human rights to no human rights. We've gone to from have it like I've had human rights every day for the last 10 years since I came out, and now suddenly I've not had human rights that whole time, and now there has to be a period of correction. And this guy just posted that. Like, in my opinion, I don't know if he wrote this article or not, but he posted it. I was like, I can't believe you changed this at her demand. You know they're taking away our rights. It's not perceived, it's real. Like, the reason I'm perceiving a reduction in rights is because they're reducing our rights. Right? He has said this is ultimately up to people higher up the food chain, but I think perceived as a full explanation of her argument. So, firstly, yeah, we know there's some transphobic people who are editors at The Guardian. This guy, who is a senior political correspondent, who I don't think is gender critical. I'm not like accusing him of it at all. I just think this is kind of a pathetic response, but I also understand that he's like in a tricky situation because there's people higher than him who are forcing changes in a pro-gender critical way and concealing the reality of what's going on, etc. But yeah, so we already knew there was transphobic editors at The Guardian. But when he says, I think perceived as a full explanation of her argument, I think that's kind of bullshit. So I've watched the video, and what the quote in the updated one is literally what she says. She says, trans people should accept... no, sorry, wrong one. Trans people must undergo a period of correction on trans rights because they've been lied to over many years. That is literally what she said in response to someone in the audience saying, what about trans people who have said that they feel like they've lost their human rights? But the whole point of the journalist isn't to just blindly report what like people in positions of power are saying. Like if she said, oh, trans people have more human rights than ever, like would they just publish that as the headline? No, because they would know that that would be factually untrue. The EHRC is currently like involved in a consultation. They've already put out guidance, interim guidance, saying that trans people should have rights that we've previously had taken away. So when she says they should quote her accurately and truthfully, and she did say that trans people must acknowledge a period of correction and have been lied to over many years. But they should then say, however, factually, trans people have had these rights which have recently been taken away by the Supreme Court, and the EHRC is writing guidance which is 180 degrees drastically different from previous EHRC guidance, which specifically said that trans people can use the correct facilities, and just write that as a fact. So why all this like oh no, it's a better explanation of her argument? No, her argument is that trans people have gone from like that history has changed. That's the argument she's making, and it's wrong. So what are you doing? Like what even is journalism if not listening to what people in power say and then quoting them and then explaining underneath the facts? Like that's literally what it should be. So I just think this is ridiculous. But I did watch through this entire oh no, Poppy is using her new litter tray. Oh dear, Poppy. Okay. Right, we've got to finish the show quickly now. I'll try and edit this bit out. So, I did watch through the entire of this talk. And I actually think that this isn't the headline. It's true that this is really grim, that the person at the EHRC who's involved in literally writing the guidance is at like this anti-trans talk with a load of anti-trans people where the audience laughs the whole way through when she's like, oh, trans people thought they had rights. Like, she didn't literally say that. Got to be so careful with these people. But like the fact that she's there and is also writing the guidance on our futures, really grim. this is worth talking about. But there was actually a clip earlier, which I think is more important, where she directly says that she doesn't believe it is possible for people to have trans inclusive groups or associations. We'll listen to this clip because I don't want to misquote her and then get sued. But so let's just go to the exact timestamp on this. So I just want to give a warning for this because this talk was so grim. It involves all of the gender critical anti-trans people in the UK basically in one room. I don't know. It's got all of the gender critical legal people, which is Ben Cooper, Naomi Cunningham, Akko Reindorf, and Sarah Vine. But also in the crowd, like I was trying to spot who's who in the crowd, and I thought over here, oh, this looks like Helen Joyce, and over here looks like Mayor Forstater. I was actually wrong. Helen Joyce isn't here. This is just a lady who looks like Helen Joyce. Helen Joyce is over here. So there's like there was a second where I was like, 2 Helen Joyces in one crowd. They're so like short for numbers that they've had to clone her. But no. Anyway, and of course, she asked some grim questions about whether trans people should even be allowed to transition anymore. And oh man, you have to be so careful with this. I feel like even summarizing it, they might try and send legal threats. They just do not like people having freedom of speech and talking about these issues at all. Which is why they have a room full of all cis people, all gender critical people, all laughing to each other. But I just want to give a warning for this because it is fucking grim. These people have utter contempt for you and your future and your lives. And they like laugh the whole way through at the idea of trans people not, trans people thinking they had rights all along. And all the audience is laughing. But there's this one particular clip, and let's just go to it. So 34, 39, and we will listen to this section. So someone in the audience has asked about banning trans people from things, basically. And Akko Reindorf has split it up into 2 things. There's like services and then there's like groups, basically. And we'll hear what she has to say on this now. Let's go back a little bit.
So that's the rules for services. For associations, it's slightly different, but it results in the same outcome. You can have, under the Act, an association, that's a group of 25 or more people with rules and membership criteria, which is just for people who have a single protected characteristic. So, like, group for older people, children, so on, women, so on. Or if everybody in the...
Sorry, I had realised it was too quiet. We're going to go back. And we're not going to have that horrible noise.
Group has...
Still quiet. Why do you make that noise? I'm really sorry. I do not know why it makes that noise when I change the volume. See what I mean about tag?
2 or more protected characteristics.
Okay, here we go. We're going back to the timestamp of 34:39.
So that's the rules for services. For associations, it's slightly different, but it results in the same outcome. You can have, under the Act, an association, that's a group of 25 or more people with rules and membership criteria, which is just for people who have a single protected characteristic. So, like, group for older people, children, so on, women, so on. Or if everybody in the group has 2 or more protected characteristics, you can do that as well. But everybody has to have all the protected characteristics in questions. So you can have a lesbian group, that's for women who are same-sex attracted. Or you can have a disabled women's group, or something of that sort. But what you can't have is a group for people with 2 separate, where some people have one protected characteristic and others have a different one, because then, let's say you have a group for lesbians or women and men who identify as women, trans women. it's not it doesn't satisfy the condition of being a single sex association, a single protected characteristic association for women, because not everybody is a woman. It doesn't satisfy the condition for being a single characteristic association for people who have the protected characteristic of gender reassignment, because not everybody has that protected characteristic. So you can't have that kind of an association. So you can't have a so-called trans-inclusive association. And as Maya says, you can always have two associations that join up and do things together. There are ways around it. But fundamentally, what we have started to call assumptions law is wrong, both for services and for associations.
So, I mean, just straight up here saying she doesn't believe that you can have a lesbian association that includes trans people legally. Obviously, the vast majority of lesbian groups in the entire country, all bar one of them probably, are pro-trans. And it's the same for all kinds of other things. Like a gay men's book club, for example, or disabled women's group. She's saying that if you have something which has two characteristics, for example, a disabled women's support group, then everyone has to have both of those things. So in a disabled women's support group, you couldn't have an abled woman, you couldn't have a disabled man. And she is just straight up saying any group like that at all, any association like that at all, cannot be trans inclusive. That is just so extreme. That is so insane. Like they're trying to like ban your freedom of association. And what they would do is if you say, well, we're going to just have a trans inclusive organization anyway, then now, according to her, you are not legally allowed to ban men, for example, because you're saying, right, no, this is a women's, like a gay women's book club, for example, and you're including trans women, but you don't want to include this man who is a gender critical man and who is trying to nose his way in order to make a scene and make a mess and ruin your book club because you're allowed trans people. And then if you tell him to go away, he can sue you, and you can't say, no, he's not allowed to join because this is a gay women's book club, because they'll say, you have a trans woman in your group. Therefore, you are not protected under the law. And so it has to be an everyone group. So you have to let him in. Like, that's the argument they're going to try and use here. And this is the fallout of the Supreme Court case, which just shows it makes absolutely no sense, because now all of a sudden, every single gay rights group or meeting group or like everything in the entire country cannot legally be those groups anymore. Like they've essentially attempted to tear apart every single. The ones I know about are like gay rights groups and stuff from LGBT activism, but I'm sure there are all kinds of things, like, for example, a Christian men's group or like a Muslim women's group or something. Now they're saying you cannot, even according to Akira Reindorf, who is the gender critical, one of the gender criticals working at the EHRC, you cannot do that. You cannot have a trans inclusive Muslim women's group, for example. And if you try it, then they won't protect you in law if someone tries to join and make a scene and make a mess of it, and you'll be legally liable for trying to have your own group. So yeah, like I feel like that should have been the headline. That is just so grim. Like, it's so just crazy, the things they're saying. I think we're going to save the other part from this talk for another time because it's just so dark. But this was one of the grim things at this talk, and it's just a room full of all these like shitheads all laughing to each other as they talk about, they call trans people slurs the whole way through, and they're all laughing at it. And they just talk about us as if we're absolutely undeserving of any equality or rights at all. And they, like, even at one point, Akira Reindorf makes some snide comment about single issue campaign groups. And they all laugh, and it's like, Half the people in the audience look like they're from Sex Matters. She works with Sex Matters. That is a single issue campaign group. Just the arrogance and contempt they have for other people is just disgusting, and I really don't recommend you watch this talk. It is so grim. It is so grim. But anyway, the Guardian won't report on that. If you even talk about this stuff, you have to be careful because they will all threaten to sue you. Just the state of things in this country is so grim. You need to write to your MP and talk about this. Yeah, fucking bleak. So a trans man who is attracted to women can join their lesbian group. Yeah, I mean, it protects you to do so. And they're not allowed to get rid of they can't say you're not allowed to join our group because you're a man, and you could then sue them. But the thing is, if you find a gender critical gay women's book club and you're a trans man and you want to join it as protest, then okay. But the thing is, obviously 99% of gay women's book clubs are going to be not gender critical people, and they're going to want to include trans people, trans women, and be supportive. So don't just pick a random one, because you'll just ruin some innocent group of women's book club, for example. So if you manage to find a gender critical one where they manage to find like 6 gender critical people who read books all in the same room, you know, it'll probably be the same people in this as in this talk, then you would have to sue them. And the reason why this works the other way round so well, the reason why what happens, someone is going to host a gay women's book club or something like that, and they're going to include trans people, and a gender critical person is going to come in and like do some supremacist bullshit and throw their weight around and try and act all powerful and involve the law and stuff. The reason it works their way around is they have unlimited funds and nothing at stake. Like, it doesn't affect them at all. They don't care. They don't care if they ruin some innocent women's book club. And they know that whatever they do, it's not going to cost them. It just doesn't matter. So if you're going to do this, you're going to need to know that you have to be careful of what group you protest against. You've got to know that it's going to directly affect you personally when the media comes for you. And you're going to have enough money to follow it through. So I'm not saying don't do it. Like, I think we should do as much protest actions as possible. But you've got to understand why theirs are more successful than ours at that kind of thing. Because they're just so insulated from the real world in a way that we just aren't. Yeah, it would be worth taking all the precautions you possibly can if you were going to do something like that. Yeah, exactly. If the group is for disabled lesbians, then it doesn't count because you can only do it for 2 characteristics, according to Akko Reindorf anyway. So, disabled gay women, I guess, get fucked, according to the EHRC. Like, it's just such a garbage group of people and set of rules. Where does the money come from for the litigation? Just from the far-right hate machine. Like, the far-right benefits so much for trans issues to be a thing. For, like, in so many ways. Obviously, a lot of right-wing people are just ideologically opposed to trans people existing. They're disgusted by us. Like, that's like one thing. So they benefit whenever trans people are hurt because they enjoy causing pain to people who disgust them. Another thing is trans people represent a like fuck you to patriarchy. So they're the system that they want to uphold, the far right and stuff. They believe in strong hierarchies. They believe that men are superior to women, straight people are superior to gay people, etc. And trans people existing just throws a spanner in that. So them opposing us in some way, funding opposition towards us, benefits them because it restores patriarchy for them to do so. It benefits them politically to create misinformation. Like, one of the classic things is if you want to control the people, the population, then you need to create an enemy for them and you need to fearmonger. That's one way that people have historically done it. That's how the Nazis did it. I mean, it's just a tale as old as time. You pick an enemy and then you rile up everyone to hate them, and then everyone feels like they're united against a common foe. And so having trans people of that is good. Like, they usually use immigrants or people of a different race or religion, Muslims, for example. And so trans people are one of those targets. So it benefits them in that way too. And it just it benefits them in a larger legal goal too. So at least some of the gender critical people knowingly and some of them unknowingly, in what they're doing here is when they're undermining trans people's right to privacy, trans people's right to a private life, trans people's right to their own medical information, trans people's right to their own bodies, trans people's right to freedom of speech and freedom of association, like all of these things are gender critical people attacking for trans people. But the only reason that trans people have these rights at all is because they are general principles that apply to everyone. So when they come for trans people and undermine our rights, sometimes they will destabilize it enough that now it's undermined everyone's rights. For example, when the EHRC recently tried to ban protesting against them outside, it was about trans people. But if they had succeeded, then they could have then banned anyone protesting against them. So then suddenly they gain a power and you lose a right. And it's the same here. Like, if they manage to make it so trans people are no longer protected to have their own bodily autonomy, it's so much easier to ban abortion. If they make it so trans people no longer have a right to private life, then they can start doing like witch trials on people for being gay or having certain disabilities. Your protections for all kinds of things from like employment to housing and stuff are undermined because you no longer have any expectation of privacy. And obviously that benefits anyone who's trying to undermine those rights. So like, this is why the gender critical movement gets so much money, because so many groups stand to benefit. Like the male supremacists benefit, the pro-patriarchy anti-feminists benefit, the people who hate human rights because it gets in the way of them running their businesses or controlling people benefit, the far-right political bloc benefits. So if you're gonna, like, if you care about any of that stuff, of course you're gonna fund the gender critical movement. Whereas like on our side, we have like the LGBT bloc of people who care about LGBT rights, and we have the like human rights bloc in general, which includes other things, which is why solidarity is so important, because the anti-human rights people, the gender criticals, the MRAs, the like Trump people, all of that lot, Nigel Farage, they have a form of solidarity. They have a common enemy, whereas we need to have like a common cause. But they also, like, as you might have noticed, they have all the billionaires. So that's the big power difference, is if it was just on human capital, if it was just numbers of people, then generally most people, until there's like a widespread anti-human rights media campaign like we've seen in the UK for trans people, most people are supportive and don't have an issue and stuff. So if it was just down to numbers of people, we'd always win. Which is why gender critical protests have 40 people at them and ours have 40,000. But it doesn't come down to numbers of people. It comes down to money in a lot of cases. And they have J.K. Rowling, Mark Zuckerberg, Donald Trump, Elon Musk, just way more billionaires. And they're always going to, because the right wing always supports removing, like, this is why it all like ties together. And this is why you get transphobic left-wing people and you get authoritarian left-wing people and stuff. The reason why there's this general trend for left-wing people supporting LGBT rights and feminists more is because people having rights undermines, like, it makes what big business owners and stuff can do harder. They want to exploit you. They want to treat you like slaves. They want you to work for barely enough to survive. They want you to work crazy hours because it benefits them, makes them richer. Like, that's just a cold human interest. And then when people introduce laws that make that harder because they can't fire people for like not working 100-hour weeks and stuff. They don't like that. And as you introduce more human rights, lots of them make businesses or business owners feel like they're losing out on money. But also, as you introduce more human rights and they start applying to everyone, it starts angering all the bigots, because suddenly black people have rights, suddenly women have rights, suddenly trans people have rights. So they end up being natural allies with each other. Like the people who want to exploit others for money and the people who hate groups of people are natural allies. So that's why it's always going to end up like this. Like this is like an inevitable political gradient, generally underlying all politics. So whether you care about left and right wing politics, whether you consider yourself to be one of those positions or not, doesn't really matter, because that's just a general pattern. But yeah, I hope that was informative. Thank you very much everyone for hanging out. I'm going to call it here. I hope it was a good show. Sorry I was a bit low energy. I hope you understand why. I'm going to have an early night tonight. And I'm not going to get weed on. We've witnessed Poppy using the litter tray now. So, Liverpool Man 1990 says, "Hey Katie, can I ask, will I ever see you on the line again?" Yeah, I think I mentioned this before, but I'd like everyone at the line, and I think they still like me, and I think they'd have me back, and I would go back. What holds me back is I burnt out from YouTube before because I did too many things, and so I thought I'd focus on my own show first. As you know, I'm putting out 1 video per day. That's quite a lot of effort because I have a real job too. But also I bullied them into hosting the Transatlantic Call-In show on Thursdays, and now I can't do Thursdays because of my own personal life. So, yeah, hopefully I might be able to do their Sunday show more. I would love to. If I didn't have a job and other responsibilities and things, I would love to do the show. I miss all the crew there, and I guess I miss Arden. No, I do. And I do enjoy doing that show. But I'm focusing on this because I think currently this is the most important thing to me politically and what I have energy for. But you should go and watch all their videos because they're better than mine. So, but yeah, thanks very much, everyone. Have a good week. See you same time next week, 8 p.m. UK time. And until then, good luck. Fill in the consultation.